Sarda, the VP of Engineering at Endowus. Actually met Deepak last year when we had a fun conversation about engineering leadership, and he always has like very interesting and innovative thoughts on that aspect. And today he will talk about engineering value and culture and how to make better decisions at company. Deepak is a product engineering lead with a track record of delivering greenfield initiatives in complex domains with global organization. He has over 17 years of experience with cloud, front office, and back office, product, and enterprise. And he is very passionate about building and growing high performance, agile software delivery teams. Without further ado, welcome to Deepak.
Thank you, Apidays. Thank you, everyone, for coming. All right. So before we get into the talk of the title, Hervé gave a very kind introduction. So my experience is shaped both from a startup world, which is where Endowus sits, but also like really large places like JP Morgan and Citibank. And so I've been able to kind of bring together those learnings into both helping Endowus scale by applying our values, but also in other aspects. But we'll just get into what Endowus is first, so you get some context of where this is coming from, right? So Endowus, we are Singapore's leading digital wealth advisor. What we do is we help individuals invest their cash, their CPF, their SRS to grow their wealth long term, okay? And we do it through conflict-free advice offered at a low and fair price. Our philosophy is what we call goal-based investment. A lot of people, first of all, I want to call out that a lot of people do trading and they think of it as investment, right? So trading is like buying and selling stocks and trying to get a profit out of it. Profit is income. No one thinks of their salary, which is an income, as an investment. But for some reason, when they do the same in trading and making money out of a buy and sell trade, they suddenly think of it as an investment, right? Which is really weird. So investment is actually thinking about growing your wealth for the long term, right? Even within investment, a lot of people think of investment as getting a rate of return, right? I want to get a 6% return or an 8% return. Most people don't actually need to think about investments that way. What people really want out of their investments is to achieve certain life goals, right? So maybe you want to save for a rainy day, or you want to buy a new car in 2 to 3 years, or you want to finance your kids' education in like 5 to 10 years. So these are the goals you have in your life. And the purpose of investment is to achieve these goals. And that's what we help people do by making sure that their investments are allocated with the right risk profile to maximize the probability of achieving these goals, right? So that's kind of what we do. And we do this by giving you great advice portfolios across different asset classes. But if you know exactly what you want, you can also do DIY, use our curated selection of 300 plus funds to build exactly the portfolio you need. A little bit about our growth journey. We launched in Singapore in 2019 as the first digital CPF advisor. Take us off. Yeah. Oh, it's back. Okay. So our seed stage was actually self-funded. We raised our first external fund during Series A with some key well-known investors. And then various milestones along the way, all the way to today. This month is when we are very excited to go into Hong Kong, our first international expansion. It's almost a cliche, work hard, play hard. I guess we do all that as well. All right, so coming back to engineering values. Values are often also kind of intertwined with culture, right? So maybe I want to talk a bit about culture and how that impacts values. There's a lot of attempts at defining culture. People think of, hey, this company has this mission and vision, and that is probably what their culture is all about, right? Achieving that mission, achieving that vision. or in the in the past like decade, perks and benefits like having a fancy office or a pool table defined kind of, this is the culture of the company. They have that as a culture. But I think the best articulation of culture is from this book by Ben Horowitz, which is, your culture is how your company makes decisions when you are not there, right? Is the set of assumptions your employees use to resolve the problems they face every single day. It's how they behave when no one is looking. That is your culture. Okay, and so this framework of decision making is pretty much what is your company's values, right? Because this is what gets rewarded. You're rewarding the values that drive the decision making, and I have seen this. I think you've all seen this, how this happens in companies, right? Every company, every department, every team, they have values. Whether they realize it or not, whether they write it down or not, the values exist, and the values are the almost invisible force that is guiding decision making every single day in your company. Okay. This is like a famous value statement you all heard of, right? Move fast and break. So this was said by Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook, and they did use this value statement to drive a lot of small and big engineering decisions at Facebook. Things like in the early days, Facebook didn't write a lot of test code. Why? Because they wanted to move fast, and it was okay to break things. And so they didn't value a lot of unit. That has changed over time, but it's kind of a decision that was driven by that value statement. Yeah, don't worry, that is not our value statement, right? We are a regulated fintech. We take the responsibility to safeguard our clients' money very seriously, and we would not move fast and break things. Another one, fake it till you make it. This is another well-known value statement. Some examples of this. Zappos, which is a very famous kind of shoe store. In their early days, when they would get orders, the guy would literally go to the shop down the street, buy shoes, and fulfill the order. They didn't have any inventory internally. That's how they built the first version of Zappos. Reddit did this as well. In the early days, Reddit created a lot of fake users just so that when people come to Reddit, they see a lot of community and interactivity, but a lot of users were fake. So there's a lot of this happening. Like, ChatGPT is a rage right now, but if you rewind like 6-7 years, the early AI bots, actually people behind the scenes typing responses, right? Because the technology didn't exist back then. Again, not us. Okay, so those are some value statements. So what is our value statement? As a wealth tech firm, where earning and retaining our clients' trust is paramount, obviously we can't break things or fake it. Build the right thing and ship it fast is how I can summarize our value statement. And so what does that mean? So build the right thing. The right thing obviously is something that is solving a pain point for a customer, right? So in our case, it means building something that is helping our clients invest better to live better. That's kind of why we are here. So one way in which this guides our decision making is making investments in tools and processes and systems which improve our collaboration internally so that we are doing right by our customers. There's another dimension to right for the customer. A right thing for a customer is something that the customer can actually use, right? Because the product may be amazing, it may have all the great features and everything, but if it's super buggy or super slow and the customer can't actually use it, then it's not right for them, right? As much as they want to believe in it. So our decision making pushes us towards higher quality as well. But it's not just clients for us. It's employees and regulators and our overall business as well. So employees, what's right for our employees is a platform that's stable, is observable. They can actually, it has a high degree of automation, so they can actually support customers easily. So that's all stuff we do for our internal employees to do their job better. Our regulators, they expect us to have very high standards for security, reliability, resiliency. So all our decisions are there to help meet and exceed those expectations. well. And then, of course, for our business, we want to build a platform that is flexible, so that when we go to new markets like Hong Kong, we can accommodate that level of growth very rapidly. So when we started working on our Hong Kong platform, it took us 6 months to go from first line of code to actually being live in production for our Hong Kong launch. And the other part of it is ship it fast. So all those considerations around satisfying stakeholders across clients, business, employees, etc., all of that could really slow us down, and that is not acceptable to us. So we need to be able to ship fast as well. So this is a famous quote from Jeff Bezos. He said, speed matters in business, and we couldn't agree more. For us, our long-term vision is to fix the broken wealth investment experience across all of Asia. That's our overall ambition. And if we can't move quickly, we'll not be able to achieve that ambition. So that's why we deliberately say that it's not just about building the right thing, it's also about shipping it fast. Okay, so how do we think about this in practice? First of all, just quick introduction of our tech stack. We have an amazing engineering team which has built our entire tech stack in-house, everything from our web app, mobile app, our backend services that support the full investment dealing settlement flow. Everything is built in-house, and of course, we rely a lot on the amazing open source community. So all of these tech logos that you see over here, there was a decision-making process behind picking every single one of these, right? And that decision-making process, like I said, is premised on building the right thing and shipping it fast. And I'm going to talk about 3 of those decisions today. And these 3 stories hopefully convey to you how you can apply that framework in your decision-making as well. All right, the first story. Our entire backend stack is actually written in Scala. And Scala, if you look at, this is a Stack Overflow developer survey from last year. Scala is not a super popular language. It's somewhere right here, right? So it's not a super popular language, but we chose it. So Scala has quite a few advantages. It's a highly functional language, which makes it very amenable to writing financial applications. And it gave us a lot of velocity in the early days when the team was small and we had to write our entire system in-house. And so that's why we chose Scala. It's also high performance because it's running on the JVM, which has been battle tested for years. But why was it risky? Obviously, it's not a popular language, so it's really hard to go and find developers. And yet we chose it. And we chose it because, like I said, productivity gains, Java interop, etc. And that risk that it's going to be hard to hire developers, we actually managed to turn it into an advantage because Scala developers, they really like to work on Scala, and we were one of the few shops in Singapore who was building really cool tech in Scala. So we could turn it into an advantage and attract a lot of awesome Scala developers to come work for us as a startup, where they took pay cuts and took equity to come in and work for us. Right, so so that was turned out quite well for us. And by the way, if you're considering Scala, it's actually quite high paying. So it may not be popular, but it's because of its niche, you end up getting paid well for being a Scala developer. Those who don't know, this is the Scala creator, Dr. Martin Odersky, and we had some moral support from him as well. The note here says, Dear Juwon, who's the CTO of Endowus. Yeah. All right, so that's the first bet, the language bet on Scala. The second bet I want to talk to you about is Flutter. How many of you here have heard of Flutter? Oh, wow, cool. But if you think about it, it's still half the audience. And back in 2019, when we picked Flutter, barely anyone heard of it. Flutter was actually pre 1.0, and that's when we bet on Flutter. So Flutter is a framework that allows you to do cross-platform app development across iOS, Android, and various other platforms. But it's quite high performant. Unlike React Native, it's super high performance. and it gets you high fidelity across these form factors, right? So it was right for our business because we could take a small team and have high velocity, move fast by being able to take the same code base and have it work across iOS and Android. But it was a risky bet for us because Dart was, Flutter, which is in Dartlang, brand new language, everything. It was very early, pre 1.0, but we decided to go for it. And it turned out well because we were able to launch both on iOS and Android in short time. And it allowed us to build the right product for customers because Flutter is actually quite high performance as well. So you get like the same fidelity you want, high performance animations, everything in the app, right? So that's Flutter. Oh yeah, as I said, in the early days, Flutter didn't have a lot. So we ended up writing some components, open sourcing them, giving talks in the community, etc. All right, the third bet I want to talk about is an architecture bet, which is around event sourcing. So event sourcing is a way of building software where instead of thinking of entity state in its final form, like, hey, I made a create, read, delete operation, and the entity state is in final form, event source systems actually save all the events that lead to, or rather save all the transitions of an entity. So every single event is persisted. And the latest state of an entity is just a projection of all of the events all of the time. And this is a slightly complex way to build software. And it could lead you to slow down, but it was important for us to do this because we are a financial system. And having high reliability and a very solid audit trail is super important for a financial system. And traditional financial systems end up building an audit trail on the side because every CRUD operation, you write an audit log on the side. But for us, our primary system of record is an event source system, which automatically is a 100% reliable audit trail, right? So that was super advantageous for us because we literally didn't have to build an audit system at all. I mean, we have some reporting systems, but the actual audit log is the actual system of truth. But again, it was risky because it's hard to reason about. It's a complex way to build software. Yeah, but it helped us deliver to our business. And then we ended up adding a few more patterns around it. Like we have to use CQRS pattern to facilitate queries more efficiently and like that. All right, so that's the framework bet. Yeah, so as I said, like 3 different situations: a language bet around Scala, a framework bet around Flutter, and architecture bet around event sourcing. And all of these were designed so that we could continue to build a product that was right for our customers, our business, our regulators, but still be able to do at a high velocity, right? And so it's easy to follow technology choices which are popular, right? It's easy to follow the herd because there's comfort in numbers, there's comfort in knowing that someone else has made this choice. But I really encourage you not to do that. You should look at what is your company's context, what is your company's values, and use those to inform your technology decision. With that, yeah, I mean, thank you for being a great audience. Special offer for everyone if you sign up today, but happy to also take any questions. Is there anything we did wrong? Yes. So event sourcing, I think we maybe went too all in on event sourcing. So we ended up building every single system to be event source. And in hindsight, not every single system needs to be event source. So now some of our newer systems, which we don't need that fidelity around audit trails, etc., we just build them in the normal CRUD style. Any other questions?
Nobody has a question. I have a question for you. How does your values, it seems like it's the values from the engineering team's perspective, right? And how do you fit with the values from the other functions inside the company, like marketing and sales, work together?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what holds the entire company together is the mission and the vision, right? And that leads to every team figuring out what's the best way for it to operate. And that's why for us in engineering and product overall, this became, and I wouldn't say that we set out with this value statement, right? It became basically a reflection of how we were operating, and then it became useful to recognize it and then drive it, especially for new people coming into the company.
So how have you structured your infrastructure? You are like completely cloud-based in terms of landscape for the infrastructure. And what gives you confidence in going along with the open sources products that you have?
Yeah, great question. So yes, we are 100% cloud native as a company, have been on the cloud from day one. As for what gives us confidence about open source, honestly, like today, every single digital interaction you do is powered by miles and miles of open source code. Our entire economy runs on open source in a way, even whether you realize it or not, right? So this operating system has maybe 30-40% of the code in this operating system is open source. So I think we are past that point where we cannot think of using open source, but what is really important as technologists and leaders is to decide what is the right tool or the right open source project for what you're trying to achieve. And then, of course, looking at other signals like what's the community around it, what's the long-term view of this community, does the long-term view of the community align with what you need from this as well? Do you think you can participate in this community, right? So Flutter, for example, even though it was early, we felt that we could participate in it and plug the gaps where we felt like, okay, this doesn't do what we need it to do, but we can actually plug in the gaps over there.
Hello. Yeah, hi. Usually, how I will suggest to all companies is totally different from what you did. I will go with what is the in-house strength, how much tools and tooling is available, and how much community is there behind a particular product. I think the time you started Scala, Flutter, all of them didn't have any of these things behind them.
Yep.
Do you think there's anything special or different that you succeeded in still working and still building a successful product? Was that you managed to raise 67 million behind that reason, and would you give that suggestion to everybody to follow those things in there?
Yeah, so great question, right? Again, so like I said, what you're saying is pretty much what the default safe choice is, right? Like, okay, this community is popular, this tool is popular, so it's the default safe choice. But that does not automatically mean it's the right choice for you. And that's what we ended up doing, where Scala being the right choice for us or Flutter being the right choice for us. And to your point around, leveraging on in-house skills, of course, absolutely important, right? And it's a mix of like leaning on the experience that your team has, but also being able to have the confidence that, yes, this is new, but my team can actually pick it up and learn and figure out how to make it work, right? So Flutter, as an example, the guy who was in the photo over there, he was very experienced with React Native, and he knew all the gaps with React Native. And he actually drove the decision-making process to say, I know Flutter is new, but with all of my experience, I still think we should go with Flutter, right? So it was a mix of leaning on our in-house skills, but not necessarily the tool skill. It was the skill of, having built apps and seen what are the pain points, and then being able to apply that into that decision-making process to say, if we have to do this, where we have to launch an app within a few months on both, iOS and Android, what would it take, right? So that was the decision-making process. As for the funding, honestly, we didn't have the luxury of funding back in the day. We operated as a self-funded company for the first 2.5 years. We were live in the market, earning customers ourselves before we raised a $1 externally. So I don't think funding matters. It's really the culture, the values that you have in the company that drive this.
All right. Thank you very much, Deepak. And I want to have everyone welcome me to thank Deepak for the presentation.
Thank you, everyone.